His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which is in front of Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives will split. Now there's the key word, the Hebrew word bakah, split. It is the same verb that was used to describe the time split the Red Sea, as you will recall in Exodus 14. He goes on to say that the Mount of Olives will be split in its middle from east to west by a very large valley, so that half of the mountain will move toward the north and the other half toward the south. You will flee by the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains will reach to Azel. Yes, you will flee just as you fled before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. The Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. That's a reference to us, dear friends. If you are thinking, boy, wouldn't that be amazing to see? Hang on, you will. You will have the best seat in the house to see these incredible truths. Dear Christian, don't you see this? Pharaoh was a type of the Antichrist. And here the Antichrist is the antitype. Don't you see that even as the Lord once split the Red Sea to deliver his people through the valley of the waters, so will he once again split the Mount of Olives and provide safe passageway for his people from the Temple Mount as they are besieged by the forces of the Antichrist. This is so exceedingly exciting to think about. And what is even more precious is that the implication in Zechariah 14 is that the Messiah himself will rescue his chosen remnant and literally escort them through the Kidron Valley and onto the Mount of Olives. This will also prevent the enemies of God from being able to retreat. They will not be able to escape from the north or the south, and instead they will be trapped in the Kidron Valley between the Temple Mount and the Mount of Olives. The Kidron Valley, beloved, think about it. This is the valley that Jesus crossed over at Passover, where millions of people had gathered and thousands of animals were being sacrificed. And if you've ever been there, you know that on the Temple Mount where the animals were sacrificed, the blood would run down through the rock gutter system into the brook Kidron, down in the Kidron Valley. And we know as we read the Gospels that this was the very valley, the very brook that our Lord crossed over as he went up to the Garden of Gethsemane to sweat great drops of blood. Imagine walking through that bloody brook, reminding him of the blood that was about to be shed. That valley that received that drainage of thousands of animals, reminding him of the blood that must be offered in order for the sins of all who would believe on him to be forgiven. That same valley is also known as the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and that means God will judge. This will become the grave of his enemies. In Joel chapter 3 and verse 2, and also in verses 9 through 13, we read, I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Then I will enter into judgment with them on behalf of my people and my inheritance Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land. As I was meditating upon this great truth, I was reminded of our Lord's lament when he once looked over Jerusalem. Do you remember in Matthew 23, he said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. And then he said this, behold, Your house is being left to you desolate. For I say to you, from now on, you will not see me until. Very important word. You will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Dear Christian, on that day when the Lord rescues his people, they will say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. On that great and final splitting, that prophecy will be fulfilled. According to Revelation 17, verses 12 through 14, we read that this final invasion will also include 10 kings or subordinate rulers of the Antichrist. And there in verse 14, we learn that these will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. So obviously, these people will be duped into believing that they can defeat the God of Israel, the God whom they blaspheme. Now, we are not told the nature of the demonic logic, but whatever it is, the nations of the world will believe them, especially given the miraculous signs that God allows them to perform. And you will recall that earlier in chapter 13, the false prophet was able to perform, according to verse 13, great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given him to perform. So my point here is in the sixth bowl, we will witness something similar, some similar deception. Now, naturally, those who remain faithful to the Lord during this time of unparalleled judgments upon the earth, as well as the persecution that they're experiencing from the beast worshipers, these people will be greatly afraid. And knowing this, I find it interesting how the Lord comforts them in verse 15. In fact, I would imagine this would be a text that they have memorized and that they will be quoting very often during this time. He says, behold, I am coming like a thief, meaning I'm going to come unexpectedly. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his garments, lest he walk about naked and men see his shame. Here we have the imagery of a soldier staying prepared for combat. And it's as if the Lord is saying, hang in there. Hang in there. It won't be long now. Don't give up hope. I have taught you to pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's about to happen. That prayer is about to be fulfilled. The moment of truth is almost here. So stay vigilant, and I will bless you. So we see the demons assemble all the forces of the nations. In verse 16, and they gathered them together to the place which in Hebrew is called Armageddon. In Hebrew, that really is a reference to Mount Megiddo, also a reference to the hill country around the plain of Megiddo, and even the plain of Esdraelon, which will be the command center of the Antichrist. It's an area about 60 or 65 miles north of Jerusalem. But also bear in mind that the forces of the Antichrist, all of these nations that will come together, will virtually surround Jerusalem. And we're told in other texts that these armies will fill basically the whole land of Israel, all the way to the edge, the southern edge, the ancient city of Basra, which is the capital or was the capital of the Edomites, the great enemies of God's people, as we read in Isaiah 63:1. And then suddenly, the long-anticipated climax of divine wrath is poured out here in the seventh bowl. Notice verse 17. And the seventh angel poured out his bowl upon the air. And a loud voice came out of the temple from the throne saying, it is done. In the original language, the grammar would indicate that what is being said here is simply this: it is finished and it will remain so.